So next up,
Thank you.
please welcome Emma. Emma is the head of Global Medical Digital Strategy at Amgen. Emma has just got back from Disney, so we'll be able to see her fresh-faced and feeling good. Look at her, you look great. And she is going to take us into the world of AI pilots. Now, I'm not sure, Emma, if I've heard the word pilot more this year or the word omnichannel. Both, both lovely buzzwords, but I feel like this year, it's like, what are we going to do next? We've seen pilots, we've done that, but the real challenge is how do you scale? When something's working, what do we do next? So I'm super keen and so grateful for you taking your time and sharing that. So thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you for the opportunity to join you all today. I've been in this role for some time now, and I would say that this presentation is going to reflect my personal perspectives and views and research and communications engagement beyond, my company. And my motto would be that I balance curiosity with accountability. And this is really going to be a collaborative exploration of the topic. So I do encourage you to submit your questions. I can't unfortunately see them until the end, but please feel free to get involved and to join me. So I think, for me, I see this as really a bridge. We are building this bridge between the kind of where we are right now and this future state. And this is very much also symbolic of the bridge that medical affairs often plays between the internal development and the external hospital or healthcare ecosystem. And so I kind of wanted to bring this theme in throughout. And I think here the important thing is, where is your organization right now? So I'm keen to understand, as you are, or as we are setting out on building this bridge together today, what would be that one thing that you feel represents how you feel right now about piloting generative AI? And I'm not going to get this until the end, but I'm definitely going to dissect into that a little bit at the end. So please add your comments. I think for me, the first time that I started to see the potential with generative AI was a sense of big accountability. So as much as it excites me, I do feel that there's a huge responsibility for here in order that we do implement and scale things responsibly. So, the innovation and curiosity and experimentation is really good. And I think we've all been in that cycle of piloting, and many companies have taken decisions to really provide great resources to their staff, whether that's an internal large language model or an internal, version of ChatGPT or a co-pilot or any of these solutions. And that's great because it gives you that opportunity to learn. But then beyond that, you need to kind of ensure that you develop and deliver and set that threshold that will help you to move forwards appropriately. So from my side, I feel that, the journey is really this kind of connected system: governance, human oversight, and trust. And I think that was also mentioned in the last presentation as well. We are at this point where, governance, I think, is paramount, and it should be the first thing that you set, whether that is governance at a sort of organizational enterprise level. I think the higher you can get this is really valuable, and not because it takes away from your opportunities to lead and to define strategy, but I think there are so many opportunities to leverage capabilities across an organization. So being able to leverage generative AI to find content is a use case that can be replicated ad infinitum for multiple groups within a company. So it's even something from a compliance perspective, from the perspective of maybe, ensuring people are get their just-in-time training on delivering a specific activity. So if I'm about to, I don't know, start to run an advisory board, and I need to know how that begins, or if I'm about to engage with HCPs to work on a publication, if I can use AI potentially to find that sort of process and follow it step by step, then that's going to ensure I'm more compliant. But equally, I can also use that same technology to find content from a medical information perspective. I'm receiving a call, I'm an operator, and I want to be able to find the right answer very quickly. So I think, the higher you can elevate the governance and the awareness within the organization, the better. And again, that helps you to sort of scale more safely because you are aligning with those bigger opportunities. And the human oversight, I don't think is going to go away. So human in the loop is something that I think is a requirement, and whether that's human in the loop from a perspective of I can have generative AI do something and then I check and then I determine, or whether that's what you call sort of visible sort of AI, then you can implement that. And I think trust, is the core stone here. But ultimately, this technology is really the solution to solving previous problems, and I think that's what we see very much with generative AI. The immediate opportunities are solving those operational challenges that have been imposed either due to ways of working or technology solutions that we've implemented previously. And I think what's important here to carry through this bridge concept with generative AI, the other part of this that you have to consider is we don't have to anymore go along this meandering road to be able to get from one place to another. We can actually build a new bridge. And that's, I think, the harder part is having people to understand how that happens and how perhaps in the past I wanted to, or I synthesized, as the previous presentation, I synthesized all of this information from the Congress, and then I deliver a report 3 weeks later. Perhaps now my opportunity isn't to do that. Perhaps now my opportunity is to ensure that a system has all of that synthesized. And then if I'm able as a user to define the things that I'm interested in, that when that has been done, so maybe the next day instead of 3 weeks later, I will either get that pushed to my Teams channel, or I can go into the system and kind of, question and answer, query myself. So I think this is also part of the challenge, is not just thinking about what to pilot, but thinking about how do you change behavior as you scale, because you don't just want the faster horses, you want to deliver the car instead. And so the first part is really building that frame. And as I mentioned, governance, sponsorship, and enabling functions are critical. So governance, certainly determining who has the roadmap, the say. I think you as leaders need to develop your own roadmap and your strategy. That needs to be broadly shared. I think what is important and critical is getting that bottom-up input into how you actually execute on that strategy. So top-down is not going to work. MIT will tell you that 50% of AI projects will fail if it's only top-down. And they also released some new data that was relating to digital projects, and they said that 95% are going to fail if you're not getting the bottom-up input. So I think it's clear you need to, as a leader, establish your strategy and your governance approach, but you also need to get that bottom up sort of ground input into what's actually a valuable use case to address. Sponsorship's also critical, so you need to ensure that your VPs and your senior leadership are there with you, and they are going to help you to redefine that kind of behavior change and change that road system. Because otherwise, you will develop something, you'll deliver something, your adoption will be okay, but you won't actually get to that critical mass. And so there needs to be this bottom-up needs, but there also needs to be the top-down support to say, right, we're now going to work this way. And so we're not going to keep doing that other thing, and we're going to change. And I expect that this, and I would like to see a report that, each month, how many people are using this, what they're using it for. So you need that sponsorship level to actually support you and back you up to increase the adoption. Enabling functions, as they mentioned in the previous also presentation, compliance, regulatory, legal, and compliance, legal, regulatory, and privacy are going to be your new best friends. And I think the important thing here is start very early with them and ensure you engage, you get their feedback. I would, always engage at a concept level. Theoretically, conceptually, is this possible? How might we be able to do this? How can we realize this ambition? We have this great idea. Because I find that, bringing them into the dialogue earlier, it sets those guardrails really quickly. And I think it's really then allows you to accelerate faster. As I mentioned, it's important to get your use cases. So establish an intake model in how you're going to capture that voice of the whole organization, the customer. This needs to be user-based product development. So you need to ensure that you're capturing that in some way, either as an intake on a SharePoint site with an email, a group, crowdsourcing sessions, even a talent development program, however you want to address it. But this needs to be something that enables the organization to get involved. And you do need to define the framework. So as I mentioned, I think if you enable the staff and the organization to experiment, it's great. But there needs to be that threshold point where they need to kind of come to you. And you can establish that also early on with your governance framework to suggest that, you need to come to us to inform that you're doing something. We're not going to stop you, but we want to know, we want to follow, we want to learn, because we also want to maybe capitalize on those learnings and help us to propel ourselves faster. Or you're going to come to us because you want to share your idea, but you also want to ask us for some resources. And they may be small resources. They may be just, I would like a data scientist to work with us for a few hours a week. Or it could be that I'm coming to you with an idea and I want it fully funded. But those three opportunities ensure that you're going to build that faster framework for scale and appropriate sort of acceleration within the organization. I think also to start, you also need to think about what are those process systems and tools that are already existing. So this was something that I think, we have a sort of legacy of systems now that are in maybe, if you're lucky, some of them are connected, some of your data's mastered, some of it's not, sits in different systems. We have a global approach to work, which means we follow our own approach. And the lack of consistency does add some additional challenges when you come to scale. So you can pilot something very easily, but then when you look at how countries operate differently to the global organization, even how the global organization operates differently from therapeutic area to therapeutic area, there becomes challenges. So I think you have to establish that data governance as well with your partners who own those systems, who own that process, and have them come on the journey with you, buy in, and help them to see how they're going to ultimately benefit from it in the long run. As you also think about your criteria for scaling, you need to kind of establish what are the success metrics. It was mentioned in the previous presentation too. And I think establish that gate criteria. At what point are you going to determine that this is good enough to scale? I also find that engaging with finance early is important because they can help you articulate that return on the value very much more eloquently. And I think it becomes challenging because generative AI is not just enabling us to do things better. As I mentioned with that bridge, it's enabling us to do very different things. And that's then hard to be able to describe on a monetary level. So finance colleagues are great to work with on this because they often have, really great modeling ideas in order to how you can actually calculate some of these savings and value metrics. And then really share your roadmap and engage. This is the biggest opportunity for you to accelerate scaling and adoption. I think, maybe consider sharing your roadmap in a way that allows people to comment. We all like the ability to comment on things and share our input. So why not do that with your roadmap? Highlight your use cases that you're working on and give people the kind of plus button to add their comment in a thread or however that allows them to be part of ensuring that that's going to be most applicable for the organization and then increase its value for scale. So again, I want to know sort of how ready are your frames? So which of these areas are you already thinking about? Are you ready with? Are you exploring as you're building out your framework for medical affairs? added a few here. Insights, we just had a great conversation in terms of performance insights and how you improve your own ability to engage. And I think, there are other opportunities with insights that come in from the field. Medical information, I think, is a key area where there's opportunity for optimization. Content is a very big holy grail, and I know there are a couple of other presentations coming up on that. And then medical impact is another area where I think this is, a good area, a ripe area to attack right now. So I'm going to talk about a couple of use cases. One is a safe footing in medical information. So I think, as we start to think about how are you starting safely, you're building that trust within your organization by starting internally. And I think that should be intentional. It's the biggest opportunity, the low hanging fruit, but it's also the lowest risk from a perspective of the rapidly changing EU AI Act and, EMA regulations, FDA regulations, US state laws, all of these different things. It makes it challenging to be able to, assess for the long term, like what's going to be possible and how we should handle this. So I think internally is a good place to be starting. Medical information, we have manual triage of calls from intake. There are often siloed databases. There are potentially long turnaround times. And, I think one of the opportunities here is attacking this in different steps. So thinking about how can you maybe provide an intake that is a little bit automated, but then there's a human validation. How can you ensure that there is a continuous learning that is part of this that helps the machine to actually be able to do better? So I think these cases help us to really start in a safe way within the medical information space. And the guardrails of trust, I think, are really critical. So as we think about our bridge, we want to make sure that we have those guardrails, those buffers that are going to ensure that we remain compliant. And that progress is only going to be as fast as you establish trust within your organization, within those enabling functions, but also with your VPs. So there should be established already within your organization a clear policy and training approach. That doesn't mean that everybody understands how it particularly applies to them. So I think always consider that needs to be reiterated and explained, because we always assume that someone else is going to know and to check. And so again, back to that accountability, we need to be accountable for our own work here. And then I think you can embed this automated review framework within whatever tool you implement. So I mentioned before, explainable AI. There's also, if you think about now, agentic AI, you can implement a CEO that will help to administer and to oversee the work that the agents are doing. So consider how you embed that review process into the workflow that you build with AI. But really, human audit and oversight is going to be paramount in whatever solution you build. Quick quiz. I'm hoping you're going to get this right. So I can see there's a poll. This is great. So true or false, generative AI understands context like a human. So I'm going to give you a minute to vote. Okay, this is good. Okay, everybody understands that. That's good. So again, per the other presentation just before, AI is not replacing you. It is going to be that crutch, that support, that amplifier, that enhancement, but it's certainly not going to be replacing you because at the moment it doesn't understand that context. And so we have to think about how do we address that. And so if we're thinking about how we scale, because for small things, for pilots, you can do your own custom GPT, you can build whatever. But if you're thinking about something that's scalable and that's going to add value, you need to consider the different solutions. And I'm referencing someone I know in the industry who's great, who explains these things really well. He has on LinkedIn the smallest AI newsletter. His name is Marco Andre, and I've added a link there. So please check him out and check out his small AI newsletter, because I think he really gives you bite-sized information in that is relevant to your work. But if you think about improving that context and how you're going to use AI, you want to consider these things. So the contextual intelligence, the LLM, I would say you're not going to want to build your own LLM. You want to build a solution that's really LLM agnostic, because right now one may be better than the other, but in the future you're maybe going to want to interchange that. So I think about your solutions as something where you can slot in, slot out, plug in your LLM. But things that can help you to really improve the context and how, again, as mentioned in the previous presentation, how do you reduce that risk also of hallucinations? And these are some of the things that can help. So retrieval augmented generation, or RAG, is something that's going to ground responses in the verified sources. So you're going to be telling it what you want from the sources and helping it to be primed almost to provide those answers. And then there's also the concept of fine tuning and kind of safety layers, and they can help to maintain sort of ethical and scientific rigor. I think you can also consider, that human in the loop. So in your process, don't automate everything. Think about what are the stop points where you're going to have a human validate. And you should do that yourself, even when you use it for personal use. But in any system, you need to definitely have that established into the process. And then, thinking about enabling adaptive workflows, prompting is a big thing. I think, a year or so ago, everything was about prompting, and everyone was thinking, how do you train people and upskill people to be able to prompt well? I would say don't. I would say enable them to use the system in their natural language. And then in the back end, you want to build in things like you want to build in the back end a prompt library that will help to establish their ability to use the machine. Agentic AI, I did already mention as well. And then, your use case of kind of the medical MSL insights. I think this is a really great one where you can break it down into these different segments that I won't go through in interest of time, but think about how you bring in AI to each of them individually and don't necessarily try and deliver on the whole thing straight away. So I think breaking something down into the whole process and looking how it comes back and provides feedback loops, and just improving those independently, building though obviously into the same tool, that you're not creating a bad user experience. And then the future, what's that future? The far side of the bridge. I think, I see that we're going to have multimodal assistance. That's going to be text, image, and voice. That was already a reality that was shared by the previous presenters. And I think that's really exciting. And I think that's also what the HCPs are looking for. We have explored quite a bit with digitally savvy HCPs. And interestingly, I think I wouldn't spend time having AI to reformat content to be able to sort of fill their needs, because they are taking content and putting it into Notebook LM and then creating their own podcasts. So I think, don't necessarily just do things because you can. Think truly about what's going to create that biggest value externally and get that feedback. I think real-time personalized stakeholder support is going to come. So as a HCP, I can get that answer when I want, digitally. AI as a coach for skills was something that was just shared. So I'm glad we're aligned there. I think there are going to be clearer standards. So I would pause a little bit on that external scale at this point. And then human judgment, I think, is still going to be central. So my sort of take homes: start small but pilot intentionally. Look at those low risk, high value internal POCs. Human in the loop, mandatory. It will help build confidence and trust. Build your governance and accountability so that you can measure your outcomes. Educate teams and sort of upskill them to accelerate the go-to-market adoption. scale with vision. You need to trust in activated change agents across the organization to help you be multiplying that uptake. So that was everything. And I don't know if there's time for questions, but I'll pass back to Kate.
Hi. Whoosh, that was a lot covered. Thank you so much. We do have a time for some quick questions. Governance. Interesting you said that. Do you at Amgen have a governance AIP set up, and how long did it take to make?
I think, yes.
Weeks?
I think there are multiple layers, and I would say, my personal opinion, I think try and elevate it as much as possible, because otherwise you end up with situations where you have the business that is potentially prioritizing something, but then the technology and the AI teams aren't prioritizing the same thing. So I think you need to elevate it as high as possible in order to be able to accelerate. But it will take some time because many people think that they should be at the table.
100%. And some great top tips there. I love the idea around when concepting, get the right people around the table. Always a win, especially for new projects and some things that we don't understand. And interesting you said about finance. I thought that was really interesting around getting them around the table. So thank you so much, Emma.